Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special roofing contractor Q&A sponsored by Beacon Building Products. My name is Art Eisner. I'm RC editor, and I appreciate you joining us. I'm happy to introduce Brendan Daly, Beacon's Executive Vice President of Operational Excellence, as we continue to cover the state of the roofing industry with a focus on operations. Brendan, hello, and welcome to the RC audience.
Art, thank you very much for having me on. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Great. Well, first off, please tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get here with Beacon?
Interesting path. So I'm actually a manufacturing guy. I spent 25 years in manufacturing, larger companies, General Electric, Black & Decker, Stanley Works. In 2013, I got a call from the then CEO, Paul Isabella, who I knew from both companies and actually worked for him at several companies. And he asked me to come and start the supply chain organization for Beacon back at the end of 2013. Since then, I've held supply chain roles, logistics roles. I'm currently the Executive Vice President in charge of Operations Excellence. And so I would tell you that distribution is much different than manufacturing. Really have enjoyed my 9 years with Beacon.
Got it. Right. A lot of those manufacturers figured out that's not the right business model for them, maybe the hard way. Well, help us understand a little bit about what operational excellence is and tell us kind of what you do in your current role.
Sounds good, Art. So for us, it's a bit unique, primarily to support our Ambition 2025 objectives. So it includes kind of the basic stuff that you'd think from a distribution standpoint. It includes fleet, logistics, the branch operational activities. It also includes real estate and facilities, all the maintenance as well as the negotiations of the leases. And then to support our Ambition 25 activities, back in December, CEO and CFO, so our CEO Julian Francis and CFO Frank LaNegra, asked me to start two new organizations, specifically as a result of input from our divisional leaders. And they said, hey, we really need support for acquisitions and then the subsequent integration and follow-on activity. And we also need a lot of support to open new facilities and make them operationally capable. So I started two new organizations. That acquisitions organization is actually headed up by a prior regional vice president, a guy named Jason Soriano, who ran Texas for us. And then my infrastructure organization is actually headed by a former regional vice president as well. His name is David Hall. He ran our Great Lakes region. So he's handling all of our infrastructure activities.
Wow, that sounds like a big umbrella to oversee. Well, tell us how that I guess fits into Beacon's business model. And you mentioned a couple times Ambition 2025. Can you break that down for us?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Art. So Ambition 2025 was a review with our investor base in February to lay out our targets for the next 3 to 4 years. And it's really built around growing the business by about $2.2 billion. That includes both improved pricing, improved sales activity, a strong focus on our customer and our customer service model. And of that 2.2, about 1.2 billion is tied up, 1 billion in acquisitions, and then another 200 million in the greenfields. So that's where my two new organizations come in. And so the heavy focus in particular on the greenfields is our target is at least 10 greenfields every year for the next 4 years. That adds at least $200 million worth of sales. And so that gentleman, David Hall, who's running our infrastructure organization, works heavily with our real estate and facilities leader in ensuring that we not only provide a pipeline of sites. You know, you may have heard that the market for industrial space is a bit tight nowadays. It's about 95% occupancy around the country. And so those teams are working very hard to identify a pipeline of 20, 30, 40 sites that we can open over the next 2, 3, 4 years. And I'm happy to say they're doing a fantastic job. We have a really solid pipeline, and achieving that target of 10 in 2022 is a very clear likelihood. As well, that same organization, that infrastructure organization, is also focused on starting to standardize all of our footprint. You know, we're really the result of dozens and dozens of acquisitions, and all of those branches may have been set up slightly different, or the facility may not be ideal. And so we're spending a lot of time focused on productivity in those branches to relay them out, make them more productive, use actually lean value stream mapping and Six Sigma techniques to help those branches become more productive. And then we're actually going to restructure all of our branches over the next 4 years to make them more consistent and more effective, both process and systemically.
Wow. So
a lot of
many,
activity.
yeah, well, many of the Beacon branches we see today are going to be different in a short time.
I think a good example of what one of our branches can look like is our new hub that we opened in Houston. So we opened a 120,000 square foot hub facility. That's part of the On Time and Complete network on 14 acres. And it's a showcase, and there's not a reason that all of our branches can't look like that. We just have to spend the time and the effort to do so. On the acquisition side, obviously we took a break from doing acquisitions, and so that $1 billion target on acquisitions is a pretty hefty target. But we have a great team, a lot of folks that were involved in our prior acquisitions, and then Jason Soriano heading up that group, coming from the field and understanding what it's like to have to integrate companies and work and keep the business running while you're trying to bring new branches into the company. He certainly brings a great perspective to that. He actually was an employee that I hired back in 2014 into the supply chain organization. So he also has a strong operational background.
All right. Well, tell me more about the On Time and Complete network, and how does it benefit your customers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we think we operate somewhat unique in our space, not entirely certain. But for us in a market, particularly where we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 branches in a market, what we saw is that we weren't operating as ideally as we could. And when I say that, imagine if, for example, you're in Chicago and you have a branch on the north side who takes an order for a branch on the south side. In the past, that branch from the north side would actually get the inventory and deliver that order on the south side, even though we had branches on the south side that could do it as well. So we've actually created systems changes and processes to support a network of branches operating together in a market. So we have 60 OTC markets. An On Time and Complete market means that, first of all, they're on the same P&L. So all of those branches were in the past were on individual P&Ls and were responsible for their sales, their margins, and their EBITDA. Now those branches operate as a team. And from that, we develop a set of processes and systems to support that. So those processes include our ability to move orders from branch to branch. It includes a central dispatch mechanism so that we combine and pool the resources, so that when we have maybe 100 trucks in a market, instead of each branch operating independently with their 8 or 10 trucks, those branches operate together, and there's a single location that dispatches all those trucks for the orders, so that we optimize the order flow, we optimize the delivery to the customer, and we optimize the operations within that network. And so some of the advantages we see for our customers are, instead of having access to inventory for one branch, they now have access to inventory to 10 branches. And not only do they have access to that inventory, but if their job is in the south part of the city, but they primarily work with a branch in the north, we can have that branch in the south part of the city deliver that order, and as a result, get it to that job site more quickly. So more likelihood that we're going to be able to give that contractor the first or second out that they so require to make certain that they can get their jobs done. The other thing is, I mean, that's important, right? I mean, you know, our contractors, they need to have that product on time. I mean, it's one of the reasons that, and I'll credit Monroe Best, who's obviously got a long history in distribution for roofing. He actually came up with the On Time and Complete network name. And I would tell you, it's important to our contractors to make certain that they have the right product, the right billing, the right delivery at the right time, so that they can ensure that they're as productive as possible with their labor. And that's our entire intent, is to service that customer. Now, we do have benefits for our own folks, though, right? Because it's considerably different. It provides them an organization that's very unique, at least in roofing distribution, in that we now have a logistics capability that we're developing. And so it gives them another path for development. So where in the past, say 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't have centralized dispatch, we now do. Our products are so large that we couldn't necessarily have like a regional distribution center. We couldn't service 6 or 8 states. But in a market like a Houston or Chicago or LA, we can certainly do a lot of that. with our tools, with our equipment, and with our inventory. And that's one of the reasons that OTC hub process allows us to be successful. So we have hubs, the three most recent that we've opened. We opened one in Denver, Houston, and LA. And those three hubs are all 115 to 120,000 square feet on anywhere from 4 to 14 acres. And so these are big branches that serves the market. It allows us a couple of things. It leverages our inventory because we can pull the slow moving back to one location. So instead of 8 branches having, one box of screws, we take those 8 boxes of screws and put them in one location. So if I get an order once every 3 months, I don't have to go to another branch to get it. Beyond that, imagine the flexibility that you have if you're a salesperson on our team, where you may be operating out of one branch that sells primarily commercial roofing, but you now have a large branch or a hub in that market that does siding, that does commercial roofing, that does residential roofing, and does maybe even waterproofing. And so it provides our team more opportunity to sell, more product breadth, and a capability that maybe our competition, and again, I don't want to speak to what our competition does or doesn't, because I really don't know. I do know that we think that this is the model for our contractors in the future. We think that to service them as effectively as possible and to get them the product they need when they need it, that this on-time and complete network is a method to do that. Beyond that, we've also seen significant amounts of productivity and actually environmental benefit. And so our average transit per order in those OTC markets is down double digits. So we've actually reduced our mileage, and as a result, reduced our consumption of fuel. And as we reduce our fuel consumption, we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Part of that strategic presentation in February of 2022 included us, Jennifer Lewis, who is our Vice President of Communications and handles all of our ESG activities, announced that our target was by 2030 to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 50% on an intensity basis. And so the OTC network plays into all of that to leverage our equipment better, as well as drive more productivity.
Brendan, let's hear how OTC is making a difference for contractors directly from someone using it every day.
In a large market such as Atlanta, where you have significant traffic and significant congestion, an OTC allows us to send our trucks from the appropriate branches. So we have the capability to get the material to the customer when they want it, which is important in this business, obviously. It also allows us to have the capability to offer them pieces of inventory and products that we previously could not offer them.
As you guys run more efficiently, some of that will obviously trickle down too to contractors in ways that they don't even know yet.
Yeah, so our intent is, we've been growing very well, and our intent is actually to create more capacity for them. We want to be able to get more first outs for them. We want to be able to get more second outs for them. Right. So the more that we can create that capacity for them to make their life better, to make them more productive, to be able to service their customers better, we know that the OTC markets can do that for them.
Well, Brendan, with all of that going on, what are you looking forward to, either in the short term and long term?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We have a lot of activity going on. I'd like to tell you that that's the extent of the activity, but that's just the operations excellence piece. We have a strong executive team now, and Julian Francis, as our CEO, has set a path for us that really provides a lot of change pretty quickly. And it's touching not just the operations piece, it's touching sales. So we're investing in our sales organization. It's touching pricing, virtually every organization in the company. And that change is pretty dramatic. For the first 6 or 7 years that I worked for Beacon, it was all acquisitions. And the breadth and scope that Julian has brought to the change and the direction that we're going, I haven't been more excited working for Beacon since I started, quite honestly. And for me, I've worked for 4 or 5 different companies now in my career. Beacon has always been a great company to work for. The folks are hardworking, they're dedicated, they really care about the customers. But I think our more balanced approach to growth and what Julian and Franklin Negro, our CFO, are providing as a framework to do that in has really propelled the company dramatically.
All right. Well, where can contractors find out more?
just go to our website. Happy to have you visit. And if there's anything I or any of my team can do to help, we're happy to help that.
All right. Well, thanks, Brendan. We certainly appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Before you go, be sure to sign up for our new free e-magazine and our e-newsletters so you can receive more content just like this directly in your inbox. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.